So, hey everyone. To start off, I want to welcome you all to our Global Virtual Tuesdays Together. I'm Jay Candelario, Community Associate at HoneyBook and Rising Tide. My team oversees both our HoneyBook product community as well as the main Rising Tide Facebook group. Both of these communities are places for small business owners and independents to connect with other like-minded professionals with the goal of gaining resources to grow their businesses. I'm a product of immigrant parents who are small business owners. I helped manage their businesses during my late teens and early 20s, wearing many different hats, and I definitely understand the struggles and hurdles that independents face. And that's why I'm incredibly happy to be supporting Rising Tide and independents like yourself. For those of you who are new, Rising Tide is a community of independent business owners, freelancers, service providers, and creative entrepreneurs who come together regularly to support one another in the spirit of community over competition. Rising Tide is composed of hundreds of local chapters led by extraordinary volunteer co-leaders and chairs, a Facebook group with now over 75,000 community members, and where we provide educational resources almost daily, including blog posts, webinars, file templates, monthly downloadables, and more, completely free to our community. And speaking of educational resources, if you haven't already, make sure to download our monthly guide for the month of July. We'll be dropping that link in the chat just now for your convenience. In this month's guide, you'll learn tips for how you can grow and diversify your revenue streams, empower yourself to leverage the whole range of your abilities, hobbies, and interests to create a thriving business, much like what Joy will be presenting on today. Rising Tide believes an empowered creative economy will change the world. And by elevating the voices of independent business owners, sharing their stories, and building a thriving community, we hope to support you in a pursuit of a sustainable livelihood doing what you love. In 2020, when coronavirus shut down our in-person meetings, we decided to take our monthly meetups online. And after an overwhelmingly positive response, we've continued to do it again and again, providing an accessible educational event every month. Today, we're excited to welcome Joi Spencer. We'll introduce her in just a moment, but first, some housekeeping notes. To say thank you for joining us live and to add some excitement to the day, we're giving away a $50 American Express gift card to one attendee. Tag at Rising Tide Society and at multipassionate joy on Instagram stories while you're tuning in. Again, those tags are at Rising Tide Society and at multipassionate joy. You can share a snapshot of how or where you're joining us from, a new learning or most quotable moment. Keep your eyes on the chat for some pop-ups and information on how you can find your local Rising Tide chapter and how to get your hands on one of our monthly guides that you can download for free and is filled with insights on this month's topic, which is diversified income. And now, without further ado, a little bit about our speaker. D'ana Joi, who goes by her middle name Joy, is a coach for multi-passionates and host of Multi-Passionate Mastery podcast. She believes having many passions is a gift, not a burden, and is on a mission to rewrite the narrative around choosing one thing being the only path to success. Through her signature group coaching program, podcast, and content, Joy teaches creatives from all walks of life how to create clear priorities and bring their ideas to life on a completely stress-free timeline. So Joy, thank you so much for joining us today. Just so everyone can get to know you, of course. Just so everyone can get to know you a little bit more, I just want to ask some really quick fire icebreaker questions. Tell us, where are you calling in from today? Where are you based out of?
I am in Long Beach, California today. I'm born and raised in Los Angeles, so I'm one of those rare people who did not move to Los Angeles from anywhere else, was born and raised out here.
Oh, nice. I guess we're not too far from each other. I'm up in Ventura, so just like an hour and a half. Yeah.
Yep.
We want to know too, are you a cat or a dog person?
I'm a dog person, but it's not because I don't like cats. I think they're amazing, but I'm allergic, so dogs.
And are you a coffee drinker or a tea drinker in the morning?
I'm coffee. Yeah, I'm coffee all the way. I only need 1 cup in the morning to kind of get me through the day, but that 1 cup is very, very sacred.
I'm with you there. I'm a 2-cup kind of guy. But all right, everyone. So let's get started. Today, we are here to talk about diversifying income for entrepreneurs and multi-passionates. You heard me bring up the term multi-passionate in the intro. And now, Joy, can you actually define what that term is and how you use it?
Yes. And let us know in the chat if you resonate with this as I sort of explain my personal definition of a multi-passionate entrepreneur or a multi-passionate creative. So the definition that I use is someone who has a lot of interest. So you're interested in a lot of different things. And you're also kind of naturally gifted in a lot of different areas. So many people have a lot of interest, right? There's very few people who are only interested in maybe one or two things in their lifetime. But we're not just talking about someone who maybe is a hobbyist. We're talking about someone who also picks up skills really fast, learns quickly, isn't afraid to try something new, and so starts to discover that they have a lot of talent as well. So interest as well as talents.
Mhm.
And then you also have this inherent desire to share your gifts with the world. So, one of the ways that you can kind of identify, are you a multi passionate creative, is do you have this call within you to figure out, how can I do all these things in my lifetime? Or have you maybe even struggled with the concept of, is it even possible for me to do all of these things that I want to do and express myself in all the ways that I want to express myself in this lifetime or in my business, right? A lot of people come to me and they say, I have all these ideas and I want to try to put them into one business. How do I do that? So if you're asking yourself these questions, and it's not enough for you to have a few hobbies or a few interests, but you have this inner pull to figure out a way to share them, you're probably multi-passionate. So let us know in the chat if that resonates. And I will say, as a multi-passionate person, a lot of traditional business advice will not apply to you. It's kind of a tough pill to swallow, but a lot of traditional business advice asks you to niche down right out the gate. It asks you to make a lot of finite decisions and choose your path really, really early on and then build your business. The multi-passionate experience is not linear that way. It's going to look very, very different, but I think that's a good thing. And all the work that I do in my business is helping people see why that's a good thing and then giving you tools to navigate that so that it's not overwhelming.
Nice. Well, that's an incredible definition. And if you actually can add a little bit more color to that, what are some of your multi passions and how have you applied them into, diversifying your income?
Yeah. So one of my passions is speaking. When I was younger, I thought I'm going to be a motivational speaker, right? So that's what I'm doing right now. I'm speaking, I'm talking, right? We're not in person. I would love to do that as well, but this counts. So speaking is one of my passions. I also write songs, I play the ukulele, and I love to sing. I used to be a lead singer in bands and play all around LA. That feels like a past life at this point, but I integrate my singing in Instagram Reels. I have episodes on my podcast that are called interludes, where I share my music in between episodes just as a way to share that part of myself. And I sing to my family and my friends. And I do think there will be a point in my life where I record an EP and that becomes my focus and I do the whole musician thing. Not right now. That's not the season that I'm in right now. I also love coaching, helping other people. That's the whole foundation of my business. I love to write. I worked as a professional copywriter for many years. That comes in handy in my business. I love graphic design. I live in Canva. If Canva was a person, I would propose to Canva. Like, I'm obsessed with it. So that really helps me in my business as well. So there are so many things. I love home decor. I love thrift shopping. There was a point when I had an Etsy shop where I sold vintage items. I sort of have dipped my toes in so many things, from
Mhm.
having my own stock photography website where I sold, images and prints, to selling vintage items. Some of these passions of mine have stood the test of time in my business and are still relevant. And some of them I realized this isn't fun anymore now that I'm trying to monetize it. And I allowed them to fall back into the hobby space. But I tried it all. And that's what really matters.
Yeah, that's beautiful. And I think that that resonates with a lot of people tuning in right now. I'm sure a lot of folks in the comments have maybe scratched the surface into a lot of their hobbies and interest, and are obviously here to see how they can explore those hobbies and maybe possibly turn those into an income stream, right? And so, if I can pose you a question really quick, you said you wanted to start by being a motivational speaker when you were younger, and someone actually dropped a question for us before registration, and they said, "I want to start having a speaking engagement and teaching in-person classes related to my business, but not sure how to pivot that into my business." So, what advice would you give to someone who is maybe passionate about connecting with audiences but doesn't necessarily know how to do so?
I love this question. And I actually read that yesterday and I was thinking about it. I really sat with this. So the first thing that I would offer here is to embody the knowing that even before you book your first engagement, you are a speaker. If you have that desire in you, I guarantee you, you have been on the phone and dropped so many gems to a friend who needed to hear your encouragement, right? You are already doing this in your life. So the first thing is to embrace that you already are that speaker. And if it feels like you need to try that on as a costume and wear it for a day, for a week, then do that. But start there, right? Accept that you are a speaker. Now, the second thing that you can do, the way that I got into speaking was I started to reach out to podcasts, because being on someone else's podcast is a great way to practice speaking. It's a great way to practice answering questions. It's a great way to practice your cadence and what it's like to be in conversation with someone and offer value to someone else's audience. And so before I ever booked any speaking engagements outside of podcasts, I would consider every single podcast interview that I did as a speaking opportunity. I added it to my Instagram highlights, not as podcast features, as speaking with a little microphone, because I was embodying this energy of I am a speaker. See, look, I went on these podcasts. After you do that, the next piece of advice that I would give is sometimes, and also, hold on the podcast front, if you're like, cool, sounds fun, I have no idea how to get on podcast, there's a website called podbooker.com, and you can create a profile for yourself. Podcast hosts can find you, and you can also pitch yourself to other podcasts. So that's a great place to start. I know there are also a lot of Facebook groups that are great for networking in that way, but I have found Podbooker to be really fabulous. So I want to give you tangible advice, not just concepts, right? The next piece of advice that I would give is sometimes when you're ready to step into something new in your business, we don't always have the benefit of waiting for those opportunities to come to us. So sometimes it looks like going on Instagram Live and speaking. Sometimes it looks like seeing if you can rent out your local coffee shop for a couple of hours and hosting your first event and being the keynote speaker. Sometimes you've got to give those opportunities to yourself. If you go that route, make sure you have someone there with either an iPhone, a friend who can film it, or hire someone to come and film and get clips of you speaking, clips that even if there's 5 people there, it can still look like a very engaging experience and be a very engaging experience. And then you start to develop kind of your speaker reel and your media kit, and you just take it one step at a time. But the most important thing is to know you already are a speaker. So what would a speaker do? What's your next step after you embrace that? That's already part of who you are. What would your next step be?
Yeah, and that's beautiful advice, right? I mean, it's truly about believing in yourself. I mean, even for myself, I'm not much of a public speaker, but I volunteered myself into moderating today's chat. So practice makes perfect, like you said. And yeah, let's jump into another question. And I think that this is more of an umbrella question for all of those who tuned in today. And it is, how do you create multiple streams of income without spreading yourself too thin or getting burnt out? And I think that this is a very genuine question. Like myself, I have a 9-to-5 job. I wanted to diversify my income as well, but it seems like it could be easy to just bite off a little bit more than I can chew. What kind of advice would you give to people in that same situation?
Yes. So here I want to offer the concept of introducing new revenue streams, because when we reframe it that way, we're already sort of pacing ourselves, right? Okay, here's what I'm working with. Let's see how I can introduce another revenue stream. So pace yourself. I teach multi-passionates how to prioritize, specifically because learning prioritization is a superpower for multi-passionate people. Because when everything feels urgent and when everything feels like it has to happen right now, it's really difficult to enjoy your experience as a multi-passionate person, because you're always running up against the clock. You're always feeling like you're behind. No one wants to operate that way and feel that way, right? So first of all, look around at where you are. Sometimes this might mean getting it on paper, out of your head and on paper. Okay, what's everything I have going on right now? Maybe do a brain dump and write that down, right? Look at it all. Then ask yourself, okay, realistically, what do I have the bandwidth to introduce? Do I have the bandwidth to introduce anything right now? The answer to that might be yes, or the answer to that might be no. If the answer is no, it doesn't mean it can never happen. It means, okay, great. Let me look at the next 3 months or the next quarter, however you like to do your planning. There's no right or wrong way. Do I have the bandwidth, or what do I have the bandwidth to begin to integrate in the next quarter, let's say? Now, if you make that decision, you start to feel like, oh, but I do want to have some urgency. I do want things to start picking up. Please know that creating that plan in the future, I call this having a flexible long-term view. When you expand the timeline, you actually give yourself way more opportunity to see connections that you might miss if you're rushing and in a hurry to get everything done right now. So as you embrace that flexible long-term view, as you look out just a little bit into the future, 2-3 months, it doesn't mean that you can't start doing research today. It doesn't mean that you can't start developing relationships today. It doesn't mean that you can't start listening to podcasts about the next venture that you want to start or watching tutorials. It doesn't mean that you can't gather information, but it means that you are thinking about you're having this flexible long-term view. You've embraced that not everything has to happen right now, because actually time is on your side and you've got plenty of time to do everything that you want. You want to enjoy your experience as a multi-passionate person. So you're going to embrace where you are right now as you begin to gather information and plant the seeds for what you know you're going to begin to integrate in the next 3 months, introducing that next stream of income. The next thing that I would say is, please don't underestimate the time it takes to get to the stage of maintaining something, right? And this is for you, my multi-passionate people, right? We love something that's new. Give me the new idea, this new shiny thing. I'm all over it. Put me in the place where now I have to maintain it, talk about it consistently, make sure the back end is running, get support if I need it. And I'm like, oh, bored. I'm bored. Where's the next new thing, right? But just like prioritization is a superpower, so is making peace with maintenance. It's not sexy, but it's necessary. If you want to have multiple income streams, you've got to embrace the time it takes to maintain what you create. I have courses right now that are just sitting on a shelf that if I had taken the time to set up an evergreen funnel would probably be yet another source of income in my business. But I didn't, because I hopped to the new thing. But when we know better, we do better. So the first thing is, instead of saying, okay, I'm going to diversify, right? Think, I'm going to introduce over time new revenue streams. They're going to build on one another. The next thing is, think about where you are right now. Really get clear with that. No one else has to look at your list. You don't have to bring anybody else into that conversation, but do be honest with yourself about what you have the bandwidth for. The third thing is, keep that flexible long-term view so you're not putting pressure on yourself to do everything right now. Fourth thing, this is a long answer, but the fourth thing is, just because you're planning to do something later doesn't mean you can't start gathering information now. And finally, the fifth tip, probably the most important, do not underestimate the time it takes to develop that maintenance of what you've created so that it can actually continue running even when you start to put your attention on the next thing that you're going to introduce. Does that make sense? I know that was a lot. Let us know in the chat.
That was a beautiful answer. And I think the key takeaway, I think, is definitely that time is on your side. Patience is a virtue. And like you said, we all love novelty and the shiny new thing, but sometimes longevity is really beneficial in, studying up on something, researching what it is you want to jump into. And I think that this is a really good segue into the next question that we got before the webinar started. It's about someone being overwhelmed researching the right answer or solution or product. And hopefully this resonates with a lot of you in the chat. Someone asked, I get overwhelmed researching the right answer. Any advice? I have a rental property as a primary investment and feel intimidated about electronic related investing. What advice do you have for folks in real estate? And I think that this could really resonate with people in more traditional industries. And now as we see the rise of, electronic investing or digital services as an investment as well, what advice would you give to those folks who are pivoting from a more traditional business?
So I want to preface this by saying I know absolutely nothing about the real estate industry, and when we're talking about digital investing, I don't know if we're talking about like stocks, but I also don't know a lot about that. So I'm unable to, in a genuine way, give specific answers to that question. But what I would say is if you find yourself in a state of just being obsessed with kind of getting it right, and you're in this perpetual research stage, maybe give yourself a time frame. Like, okay, I'm going to spend 1 month researching and then I'm going to take one small action. Doesn't mean that I have to get it right or know every single thing, but I'm going to take one small action, right? Sometimes having that time and be gentle with yourself if you need more time. The next thing that I would say is, especially because I'm not skilled in this area, is to find people in your industry that you can talk to. Let them know, hey, even if it's virtual, I will send you a virtual Starbucks card, but can we have a quick coffee chat? I've noticed that you're doing this in your business. I want to do the same thing. People are so nice. If you just reach out and you ask, most of the time, if someone has the time truly, they will help you. So that's what I would say. Yeah, check out the Rising Tide Facebook group and say, hey, where are my realtors at? Like, I have a question. I'm really wanting to get into electronic investing. I'm a realtor. Like, what's the overlap there? What have you guys tried? And try to do a little bit more crowdsourcing in your industry. So hopefully that helps. And I apologize that I'm not able to answer that one more specifically.
It's all good. And we have 2 quick questions. One of them is actually from Josephina Sanders in the chat. She asks, how do you share all your passions without seeming scattered?
I'm teaching a workshop on this exact topic next month. So I'm so glad that you asked this question. Okay. In the chat, Josephina's here, right? So who has seen the show Stranger Things? Has anyone seen Stranger Things? Has anyone watched the latest season, like, season whatever 4 that we're on now? If you've seen Stranger Things, then this is going to really make sense for you, or you can plug in your favorite TV show here. When you watch a television show, specifically Stranger Things, and they begin to introduce new storylines, do you turn off the TV because all of a sudden you're confused? Are you like, what? New character, new storyline? No, I'm confused. I cannot watch this. No, right? Why? Why is that? Because storytelling creates a thread that connects each of the different elements and brings them together. It's the same with offerings in your business. You are the through line. So I could drop an EP tomorrow and I could be worried that it's going to feel random for my business, an EP or an album, a musical project. And I could feel worried that it's going to confuse people. Like, oh no, people are going to think now this is a music page and I'm a coach. And is it going to confuse people? But all I have to do is say, hey, everyone, you might not know this, but before I started coaching, I was a singer. I sang in lead bands. I sang lead in bands all over Los Angeles, and it's a passion of mine. And what I love about singing is that it allows me to connect with people. It allows me to share this universal human emotion through music. And coaching is the same way. When I'm in a coaching container, I'm sharing and I'm connecting human to human. So I'm so excited to begin integrating music into my business in a new way. I can't wait for you to hear some of my music, right? Like, it's just talking about it. Now, the second part of this is a lot of times clients come to me with this exact question. I want to start sharing more. I'm afraid I'll confuse my audience. Do not let your confusion be projected onto your audience. If you are clear and you can articulate what you're doing with your own sense of clarity, no one else is going to be confused. Just like we're not confused when we watch Stranger Things, because we understand, well, they're in different locations. We got the upside down. We got some different storylines. And we can all, if you can watch Stranger Things, if you can watch Game of Thrones, you're a person who can get behind a business that has multiple offers, period. If that business can do a decent job of bringing you along for the ride through telling stories. And don't overcomplicate this. I'm not talking about you need to have an epic hero's journey, like a narrative arc. No, just talk to people. Just talk to people. Hey, did you guys know I love poetry? When's the last time you read a poem? I'm going to put a poll in my stories. When's the last time you read a poem? It's been a while. Okay, well, I'm going to read you one of my poems. I know this feels totally random, but it is so cool that you can just open up a page, spend 3 minutes reading this short piece of text, and get so inspired. So I'm going to read you one of my poems today. That's it. no one's going to be confused by that because, I mean, people are capable, right? Like we're adults. So people can get behind it. So start with your own clarity first. Make sure that you're clear. What's your own through line? What's the connection that each of these offers has? Is there one? If there isn't one, look for one, right? Next, tell stories that weave them together. Just bring your people along for the ride with you and trust that those who are going to appreciate you as a multi-passionate are going to go along for that ride. Now, there may be people who don't watch Stranger Things because it is too much for them and it is confusing. And that's okay because you don't have to be for everyone. But if you want to have a multi-passionate business, you have to go first and start to share. Make sure you have your own clarity first. Begin to share and trust that the people who are ideal for your business are going to go along and enjoy that ride.
And I think that is really good advice. Like you said, you don't have to be everything for everyone all at once, right? You kind of just have to follow your own path and see what sticks, right? And before we jump into a few more questions, I just want to remind everyone that if you have any questions now live during the webinar, feel free to drop those into the Q&A, and we can get to those at the end of the webinar. So the next question that I have for you, and this kind of builds off of those multi-passions, someone asked, I have multiple gifts in branding, web design, and photography. I would love to diversify my income for these areas and create income that doesn't always require my active time. I'm thinking about selling website templates. I'd also like to start licensing my photos for stock photo usage. Do you have any suggestions on how I can diversify my income in these areas specifically?
To this person, I'm going to say trust yourself because you're already going there. You're like, okay, I got website templates, stock photos. So can you trust these ideas? Can you start to take a little bit of action on these ideas? Can you ask yourself, okay, what can I start with now that will make the next thing easier, right? If you have website templates and you use your own stock photography and you're able to sell your stock photography package as an upsell to anyone who purchases a template, that makes a lot of sense, right? So those are two great places to start. So if you haven't done that, then maybe you're looking for someone to give you permission. Just go for it. Give yourself permission, right?
Mm-hmm.
That's really my answer to this one. It's like little tough love. Like, yeah, go do it. You already know what to do. Now, if you're looking for other ideas, here are some other ideas. And this is actually not industry specific. This can work across multiple industries. For service providers. If you are a service provider, so photography, this person says photography, branding, right? And web design. So those are all services that you're providing, right? So anyone who's in a service provider industry, you can think about your client's journey. Where are they before they come to you? Is there something that you wish your clients had access to before they got to you that would actually make working with you even more seamless? Can you create that product? So, for example, would it be helpful if someone knew how to audit their own website so they know exactly what they need help with before they come to you for website design? Can you create, here's how to DIY audit your website in a mini course or an ebook, for example? Because then you are still helping your client who maybe is going to do your most high ticket offer, which might be the service you provide, but you're meeting them where they are. What about after you're done creating their website for them? Would it be helpful for you if that person knew how to maintain that, how to check if they don't want to come back to you for that? Can you create, hey, I know we're finishing this project together. I just want to let you know I have a mini audio course that walks you through how to audit your website and make sure that everything stays updated. Or I have a PDF or a mini course or whatever, a workshop or something like that. Or, hey, I host live workshops where I help people audit the back end of their website. Make sure you're on my email list. I'll let you know when the next one is. So think about your clients. Think about where they are before they come to you. Can you bridge that gap? And then think about what they're going to need after you're done working with them. And can you provide that for them? Those are some really easy starting places to think about diversifying your income. And this person also said, what can I do that doesn't require me to be there? So these are, I'm talking about really creating digital products as the solutions for these. And digital products, that's a way that you don't have to be there if you can get everything set up and embrace maintaining it, like we were talked about earlier.
Yeah, that's great. And I think that that's incredible advice for service providers is just that longevity and that follow through with their clients as well. Besides just the initial consultation and package that you might sell to someone, it's just really being creative and thinking about what they might need afterwards. I think that sometimes we just kind of want to get the project done, clean our hands, get rid of it, but there is a lot of work that sometimes
Yeah.
needs to be continuously done. Um,
Yeah.
the next question I have for you is has a bit of specificity into an industry as well.
Okay.
Um, Someone asked, ooh, I think I lost my question. There you go. What are some of the best or first steps for a copywriter to diversify their income? And I think that you're really great to speak to this. You have some background in copywriting. What would you say to this
Yeah.
person?
So I would say part is the answer to the last question. Think about where your client is before, where they are after, and what you can create. Also, copywriting lends itself really well to templates, you know, templates for here's how to write your about page, here's how to write your home page, or even Instagram captions, here's how to write captions for this type of post or this type of post. So you can think about, what can you bridge the gap for someone else with your skill set. But you can also think about, is there anything else that you're super good at that you do really really well because it's just second nature to you that someone else might not really do very well. Maybe you have the most amazing, most organized Google Doc system and it comes really naturally to you. But for someone else to be able to plug that in and keep track of everything, it would be amazing. Okay. So apply that to anything else. Maybe you have a way of like organizing your emails that is just your inbox is always at inbox zero. Like my virtual assistant, when she came into my business and organized my emails, I was just like, if you could package this and sell this, you really should, because right now we're taking a break where she's not managing my inbox and I still get to inbox zero every single day because of the system that she set up. So think about things that, and she's just like, oh, this is just how I do my email. It's nothing for her. So think about what you're naturally good at that has helped you or solved a problem or been a solution in your experience. And then what can you do to help that? Now, if you want to stay in the vein of copywriting, what I would actually do is get really, really curious and start kind of auditing the businesses of your ideal clients. So here's what I would do if I was a copywriter and I was like, I want to find a unique way to diversify my income as a copywriter. And I would try to find my ideal client. Maybe my ideal client is a coach, a wellness coach. I would go and I would look at their programs. I would look at everything and I would be like, okay, where in their business are all the places that copywriting touches? Their emails, their Instagram, this, that. And then I would ask if I can help them in some way with those things. Hey, I see that you write a lot of Instagram captions. Have you ever thought turning all your captions into visual carousels? Because a lot of people aren't reading captions today. Like if I was to create a Canva template where you could just immediately take your captions and repurpose them into Instagram carousels, would that help you? This is just off the cuff. Or you might say, okay, my ideal client is someone who helps other people start businesses. Then you can even ask that person, hey, I see that you have a coaching program where you help people start businesses. Is there anywhere in your program where learning the skill of copywriting could really support your clients? Because I've been wanting to do a little bit more teaching and I would love to put something together for your program. Can we hop on a call and talk about that? So that's what I would do. I would piggyback off of businesses that are already established that could use my services as a copywriter. And I would think less in the realm of, okay, I have a client, they hire me for a specific thing, and more in the realm of like, hey, I wonder if Rising Tide Society needs any help with writing their recap emails for their webinars or getting more people to their webinars. Maybe I could start helping them by writing copy for that. So just think outside of the box and think about your ideal client, kind of dig a little bit and get curious about what their business is. Think about where copywriting is relevant and then see what ideas come to you. And you could really apply that to any other industry as well.
Nice. And I love the example that you gave about your VA, about her, just being really good at, inbox zero, but not necessarily knowing that you can use that as, as a way to create more income. My mom has an expression saying, don't do anything that you're good at for free. And so for maybe some of the people, including myself, this kind of sparked a little bit of curiosity. What advice would you give to us to identify our superpowers? All of us have those superpowers that we could use to diversify our income, but how would we take a step back and discover those?
So you can do, I think this is called like the friend test or something. You can ask friends, hey, okay, this is kind of a weird question, but what's something that you would come to me for? Like if you needed something done, what's something you would come to me for? So right now I'm thinking immediately off the bat, if I asked someone that, they would probably say, you're really good with kids. You just know how to entertain kids. I worked as a nanny for 7 years. I learned how to keep kids entertained of all ages. And then I was a substitute teacher. So it's not something I talk about all the time, but if you see me around a child, you're like, whoa. It's like, okay, this person's really good with kids. So that's something that people might say to me. Now, that would be a totally different industry than what I'm doing now, but I could put together like, hey, here are some really fun activities for your multi-passionate child, right? And I could just go a whole new branch of my business. We're going to talk about kids who have a lot of interest. How do you play into that, right? On a day-to-day basis? How do you foster that? How do you raise your kid to be multi-passionate? Maybe there's some people who would really want to get behind that. This is just a random example. So you could do the friend test. Ask other people, hey, what's something that you think of me like that you would come to me for? What's something that you feel like I'm just really good at? Because a lot of the times we can't see ourselves, right? So it's helpful if we can have that mirror, someone else to be that mirror. So I think that's probably the number one best thing. The other thing you could do, it's kind of meta, but try to just observe yourself for a week, right? Are you getting your tasks done quicker and quicker and quicker because you always use the Pomodoro method and you have an Asana board or a ClickUp board that's just really clean and efficient? Have you kind of figured out how to project manage yourself? Well, not everyone knows how to project manage themselves. That might be something that you could help people with. Are you really good at creating recaps of meeting notes? So for all my corporate people, are you the person who every single meeting, they want the meeting notes from you because yours are so well outlined? Maybe you can create a template, right? So just sort of observe yourself and try to see, what is it that I'm doing that I'm breezing through? What task am I performing that I have no resistance to? That just feels really, really good to me. And then what are you doing for fun as well? You can also think about your hobbies. So if you're someone who maybe you pick up watercoloring really, really easy and you just had to take one class and now you can make all your own things, maybe it's time to teach that skill to someone else. So that's what I would say. And that's so fun. Have fun with it. Keep it light also.
Yeah, that's really great advice. And like I said, I think that we truly all have our own superpowers, but we might second guess ourselves. But that friend test, I think, is an incredible method to use as well. Your friend, assuming that you have friends, right? We'd hope that they'd be really honest with you. And you never know, maybe after this, you would tell me, hey, go MC weddings and quinceañeras, right? And I might take your advice and do that. So another question we have, and again, anyone in the chat, if you have any questions, please drop those into the Q&A. We'd love to get to those. Was what is the most low lift way for you to diversify your income?
The most low lift way.
Pretty
I think
general.
it depends on kind of like what's low lift for you, because low lift is going to be different for each person. So one person might say, oh, I'll create a digital product. And another person might say, that sounds like a nightmare. So I'll give you a few examples. And then this way you can pick what will work for you the best. One low lift way, and I know Natalie will love this because Natalie's created so many amazing, so much amazing merch, so many amazing t-shirts. So merch is a pretty low lift way, especially if you do drop shipping. I have my own merch shop where I create graphic t-shirts that say multi-passionate creative or creative AF or serious business person. So it's really, really easy to open up a merch shop and you can just use drop shipping. So you don't have any inventory. You don't have to send anything out yourself. All you've got to do is tell people that it exists and maybe do a little bit of customer service when necessary. That's a really, really low lift way. Another low lift thing could be a digital product. It just depends on if you're willing to also do the marketing part that might need to come behind that. So that's another low lift way. Another low lift way to start diversifying your income, collaborations. Exactly what I'm doing right now. I'm supporting this amazing Rising Tide community, but I'm also, speaking and doing something that I love. And what I needed to do was agree to it, sign up, show up, and be here to talk. So for me, this feels low lift because I love this and I would do this anyway. But it is another way to add a revenue stream, because a lot of partnerships with certain companies, you can request to be, compensated for that with payment. So those are 3 starting off ideas. I'm probably forgetting a lot of them. I think templates are great as well. But again, when we talk about digital products, I don't want to mislead anyone. It does take marketing. And sometimes it does take having some kind of funnel or a way to get people to that digital product. Yes, you can contribute to the Rising Tide blog. I know that they do offer some compensation for that as well. And there are a lot of other places where you probably can do this too that are monetized that I don't even know about. So once you start dipping your toes, you can find other places. But if you have a skill like writing that you love, then you can submit articles. You can also provide a really, really simple low lift service. Like if you go on Fiverr, Fiverr, or Fivr, I'm not sure exactly. That's basically a website where people go and they offer their services. And you can see something as simple as, I'll help create your Instagram graphics, or I'll help create custom gifts for your Instagram. And then there we go. Thank you so much. It's in the chat. And you can provide that as a service. Now, you could literally YouTube how to do it, test it out, maybe do it for free for a few of your friends or make some for yourself, and then boom, offer that service, right? And I think the premise of it is you kind of start low. That's why it's called Fiverr. And then as you have more clients, you build up and you can charge more and more. So you could also learn a very simple skill that can be offered as a service that won't take you a lot of time, and do that. Another low lift thing, some people love to resell items. So they'll go to a vintage shop, find something that's really beautiful, start an Etsy shop and resell it. And for somebody that might feel low lift. For other people, that's going to feel like a lot of work. So really get clear on what is the most low lift for you, and then kind of look at some of those ideas.
Yeah, and those are some incredibly creative ideas as well for a lot of people in the chat today. I almost lost my train of thought. Oh, I was going to say, and another way to, simply do a gut check, or if anyone ever feels like they need to be inspired, remember, check out the Rising Tide Facebook group. There are 75,000 plus members who are more than willing to help or point you in the right direction. It is a community of creatives, of people who inspire me day in and day out with everything that they're doing in their small businesses. That's always a resource that's available to everyone. We have almost our last question that we got before the webinar started. And if the person that asked this question is here today, we just would ask if you can add a little bit more context. They asked, will you be talking about exit strategies? And I'm not too sure if this means exiting the corporate world and entering, the independent realm. But if you can maybe give some advice in the meantime, if that person's here, that'd be great.
Okay, let's take it in that context that someone wants to exit their corporate job and maybe get into, like, make their side hustle their full-time thing. And that's what we're talking about. And we can also talk about it in terms of if we're talking about pivoting from one kind of business model to another. So my first thing is, if you're working at corporate or you have a 9-to-5, to really begin to think of this as your support job, as a source of support in your life, as your very first investor, right? Yes, you are there and you're trading your time and your skill set, but you're getting income that you can then use to help fund your passion project or your side hustle. So that reframe is really helpful. Do not ever call it your full-time job unless you want it to be what your time is full of. Use the term support job, use the term my day gig, or whatever works for you. But I really would caution you against calling it your full-time job, because words matter and you're teaching your brain how to conceptualize this. So support job is really, really, really helpful. The next thing is focus on doing the best you can at your support job. If you're at your support job and you're doing the bare minimum and you're dragging your feet because you don't want to be there, then you're going to be operating out of integrity. And you don't want to take that energy with you into entrepreneurship, right? Natalie, please shout this out. When you're an entrepreneur, all your ugly comes out right away. So work through that mindset shift while you're in corporate. Do your job, do your best. I have a blog on this. I'll send it to you, Jay, after, in case you want to link to this blog. But do your best while you're in that job. Keep your integrity. Focus on the skills that you're learning, the connections that you're making, so that you can be grateful for that experience as you're working toward exiting and having, maybe having a different life path. And then make a plan. Make a plan. How much income do you need to truly exit without feeling like you're going to be living in squalor, right? What can you do that's going to feel supportive for you, for your nervous system? How long do you anticipate that taking? What are your avenues to get there? Create a plan. Now, this last tip is exactly what I did when all I wanted to do was coach. All I wanted to do was be a full-time entrepreneur, but I had a support job, right? And I had to figure out how I could make this work for myself. I created a workday manifesto. And in the blog post, I provide a free download where you can fill in the blanks. And I wrote this workday manifesto and I printed it out. And when I worked in the office, I had it in a little folder and I would open it up and I would read it every single day before I started my workday. And it says something to the effect of like, I'm so grateful for my support job. I'm grateful that I'm learning these skills. When I have this amount of income from my business, that's when I'll exit. And my goal is to do this by this date. But for now, I'm going to do the best that I can. And I'm grateful to be here. Something like that. And I would read it every single day before I started work. And then when I started working from home, I had it, I taped it up, right? Do not tape this up if you work in an office and people are going to be walking by. They're going to be like, ooh, what's that? A workday manifesto? And it's talking about how you want to leave. I wouldn't do that. But when I work from home, I was able to do that. So you put yourself in that state of mind every single day before you even start work. So if that was the question, I hope that helps, or I hope that helps someone anyway. Now, if we're talking about pivoting from one thing to another, so exiting, let's say you're like, I've been a coach, I've been a consultant, I don't want to do that anymore. I want to go strictly product-based. I want to sell skincare products, for example. I would say, embrace your pivot. Again, you're going to want to use storytelling as you're making this transition, and then invite your community to come with you. Some of them will and some of them won't, but don't count them out. Don't decide for them that they're not going to be interested in your next venture. Take them behind the scenes. Show them what you're doing. Tell them why you're doing it. Some of them will be so intrigued by your journey that they'll just want to stick around and see where you go. Some of them might be legitimately interested in your take on skincare and be waiting around for when you launch, right? So I'm just using that as an example. If this is a question about pivoting, again, it's kind of like the question of how do I not confuse my audience? Clarify for yourself, what does this pivot mean to you? Articulate that through talking to your people, doing a bit of storytelling, invite them to come with you, know that some will and some won't, and then pivot. You can't wait for everyone to give you permission. You've got to just go. You've got to go first.
Nice. That's awesome advice. For whoever asked that question, I really hope that covered some of those concerns. And again, before I get into the outro, if anyone has any further questions, please feel free to drop those in the Q&A, and we want to make sure to take those up. In the meantime, though, if you've enjoyed any part of this webinar, again, please feel free to tag at Rising Tide Society or at Multipassionate Joy on Instagram for a chance to win that $50 American Express gift card. And let me just check now. Yes, the webinar has been recorded and will be shared through email after this. If no one has any other questions, I want to say a massive thanks to Joy. Thank you so much for taking us on this ride today. What you gave us today hopefully really echoed with everyone. It definitely echoed with me as someone who definitely wants to build on my passions and the things that I'm good at. For everyone who attended, thank you so much. We're really glad that you all joined. And for next month, we will also have another one of these little webinars. And Joy, if there's any final words, is there any last takeaway that you want people to walk away with? This is your time.
Yeah, sure. So everyone, you're welcome. Thank you for spending time with us today. Everyone who's time traveling and watching the replay later, Thank you so much for coming and spending some time with us. I just really want to encourage you, if you are multi-passionate, please, please, please know that I'm here for you. So there is a world where you being multi-passionate is celebrated. Check out my podcast, Multi-Passionate Mastery. It's a perfect place to start if you want some empowerment along with tangible tools to start really living your life as an empowered, embodied, multi-passionate. I want you to remember this: your talents are a gift, not a burden. Once you learn how to work with your multi-passionate nature, it no longer becomes something that's blocking you or holding you back from all the things that you want to do. So do not give up. Do not count yourself out. And please do not put yourself in a box that was never meant for you.
Perfect. Thank you so much, Joy. Thank you for everyone that participated. Again, there will be a recording of this available shortly afterwards. Everyone have a great rest of your week, and we'll see you all later. Bye, Joy.
Bye. Thanks, Jay.